Let's think through another type of event, and let's analyze a demand event. And let's suppose that a study comes out and finds that people who eat more than 2 ice creams a month just get cancer with overwhelmingly high probability. So this study convinces people that, oh boy, eating ice cream is delicious, but it's just going to lead to my early demise, and I'm going to, as much as I like ice cream, I'm not going to eat it as much. All right, well, what's this going to do? This is going to be a demand event. Taste will change. We had been holding taste constant, and now taste change. So at any given price, less ice cream is demanded. The short run event, let me get a pen instead of an arrow. The short run event is going to start in the market this time. Cost events start over on the firm side and feed back into the market. But this event is a demand event. It starts in the market, which is where we have consumers modeled through the demand curve. All right, demand falls. Well, what's going to happen? Quantity sold in the market goes down. Price falls. And now Ileana's costs don't change, but she's getting a lower price. The demand that she faces falls. Remember, she's a price taker, just has to accept the market price, and that has fallen. So her output goes down, and she went from breaking even to now her average total costs are that point on the average total cost curve. They're not the minimum average total cost. They're the costs, average total cost right above Q1. So average total costs are now higher than the new low price P1. They're higher than the old price P0 too. And her losses are represented by this blue rectangle. Average total cost is higher than price, so we know average profits are negative, and then we multiply through by output, the output she's producing, we get the area of this rectangle. That's her losses. So short run loss. All right, well that's the short run case. I make it look easy because I've done a million of these, but you need to practice these at home. Let's think through the long run. This is something new. One thing new was analyzing Ileana's shot. The market event isn't new, but this firm level analysis is new. Now, another new element of this analysis is the long run. We had been only thinking through the short run before. Well, in the long run, what's going to happen? Well, the long run always boils down to a question of asking what's happening to firms in the short run. And here, firms are running a loss in the short run. So if firms are running a loss in the short run and nothing's going to change, there's no study coming out saying that ice cream is good for you after all, or not as bad for you after all. This is just a new information that's changed the game. If that situation is going to persist, well, geez, some of these people are going to say, well, heck, if I'm going to stick around selling ice cream, I'm doing worse than I would do in my next best opportunity. I'm out of here. So in the long run, what we see, again, is exit. So long run exit. Do a demand increase on your own so you can have a case where there's long run entry. How much exit has to occur? Well, the survivors have to break even. One sec. That long run exit occurs and industry output falls. And notice that Ileana is back to producing her productively efficient minimum average total cost level of output, the long run equilibrium output. Now, I've implicitly assumed that this is a constant cost industry. That is, when ice cream makers leave the market, the costs of supplies for the firms in the market don't change. And that's not probably too bad of an assumption for ice cream makers. The way that shows up is that there's this long-run supply curve. As long as cost conditions don't change, if it's just demand conditions changing, the price is going to return to this long-run equilibrium price if it's a constant cost industry. So we would model that as a flat long-run supply curve. Now it could be, this is important if you're studying, say, the steel industry that uses iron ore as an input, and it's really the only industry that uses iron ore as an input. Well, if the steel industry shrinks in the United States, well, there's less demand for iron ore prices fall, and the costs of the surviving steel makers fall. In that case, you would see, I wonder if I can, well, you can always rewind to get this picture. If this were an increasing cost industry, the long-run supply curve would look like, I'm going to change my pen color. Let's use green for that. If it were an increasing cost industry, because of what's happening to individual firm supply curves, you would have a long-run supply curve like so, upward sloping, and with exit, the cost structure of each firm in the game would fall if this were, again, a decreasing cost industry and there were exit going on. The reverse would be true too. If there's entry into the steel market, well, then the cost of iron ore is being bid up, and for the new entrants as well as the incumbent, the costs of iron ore are going up. Now, there are industries that have decreasing costs, and my favorite example of this is it's counterintuitive, but it turns out that there's a big concentration of carpet manufacturers in around Dalton, Georgia, which is where carpet was invented by a woman in the 1800s, just fooling around with her crochet needle. She figured out a way to make rugs. Well, here we are 150 years later, and the carpet industry is all still concentrated right around Dalton, Georgia, and that's because that there's a lot of supplies that carpet makers need, and that those supplies are produced with economies of scale. So the low-cost producers of the mesh that forms into which the carpet fibers are woven, the glues that they use, all those are components that are produced with economies of scale. So if you locate in Dalton, your costs are lower than if you located anywhere else, and that's persisted even to this day. So the way we'd model that is a decreasing cost. The bigger the industry, the lower our unit cost, because firms are able together to capture these economies of scale. Let's use bright yellow, just because I don't think I've ever used that before. If we had a decreasing cost industry, we'd have a downward sloping long-run supply curve. And I've put all of them to go through that initial short-run equilibrium just to indicate what would happen. And with exit in a decreasing cost industry, because the industry is getting smaller, as that industry got smaller, the costs of each member of that industry would tend to rise. And you can see that mapping anything but a constant cost industry gets to be a big mess. So if I'm going to make you diagram out one of these big, market and firm event analyses, you can bet it's going to be for a constant cost industry. They're hard, but the constant cost industries, but they're not as hard as the increasing or decreasing cost cases.